Hey, awesomes. It's your girl, Curry, on AWE Radio, where we are unapologetically empowered and always on with information and inspiration for your transformation. Welcome to another episode of Her Woman Evolves. And I am so excited and delighted about our guest today. Let me tell you who we have all the way from Bangalore, India. It is Shobhana Nikam, who is a senior corporate attorney with over 25 years of expertise in corporate, commercial, transactional, banking, and real estate business and law. She has worked in various law firms and corporations, including Fortune 100 global institutions. She supported significant corporate transactions like mergers and acquisitions, litigation, and global legal operational delivery and transformation in India and the Philippines. She is a holistic leader and trusted advisor, from operating committee member to team advocate to esteemed colleague, as well as an active proponent of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Again, she is located in Bangalore, India, and I'm happy to say that she is a dear, dear friend of mine, and I am so grateful to have her with us on AWE Radio for this Her Woman Evolves series. Thank you so much and welcome, Shobhana.
Thank you, Corey. I'm so delighted to be here. And thanks for the very, very kind and flattering introduction.
Oh, Lisa, you're very welcome. And it does not do you justice, because what you guys will soon hear is that the bio that I just read is so brief compared to the many things that she has done. And we're going to get right into it. At first, let me say this, a special thanks to her, because I am interviewing her morning Eastern time, but she has stayed up nighttime, her time, so that she can do this interview. So I'm so appreciative to you, Shobhana. But let's just jump in. So clearly, you have a broad and impressive background in law. I'd like to say in business and law, but I want to focus on law. So what first interested you in a law career?
Okay, so this is going to sound a little weird. The quick quirk of fate, as I would call it. I grew up in Chennai, which is a South Indian conservative city in a middle class family. And I was brought up with the belief that a good education is very important to empowering oneself. So no matter what I would do or ended up doing, I would take it to the logical end. I had no great aspiration to become a lawyer growing up. Back in those times, becoming a lawyer was not really one's first career choice, unless you were strongly inspired by someone or you had to join the family profession of lawyers. In my case, it was neither. I was the first lawyer, both sides of the family. It so happened that I was asked to play the role of Portia in Merchant of Venice while I was in grade 8.
I
And
love that.
I probably did a good job because many of my teachers and friends felt that I should just go on to become a lawyer, as if it was that easy, right? So
Right.
in 1988, when I was around 17 and still clueless about my career options, my grandfather, who was the family patriarch, sat me down and handed me the prospectus of Madras Law College, which is a very old institution. And his logic was that whether or not I would become a successful lawyer, uh, the legal education will teach me more about practical side of life itself in general. Well, he was right,
Mm.
as it turned out. So with little or no preparation, I attempted that exam and somewhat did well, much to my disbelief, and ended up studying law.
We're not
And
surprised. I'm going to tell you right now. I just have to interject there. It may be much to your disbelief, but I am not a bit surprised.
so the good thing was that I enjoyed studying law and went on to invest 5 years of my student life to becoming a lawyer. And I did graduate top of my class, so that went well.
Mm.
I think I went on to bust many myths about becoming a lawyer. Like I said, I was the first lawyer, both sides of the family. And one time, I just graduated and I was hoping to cool my heels and take a break. And I accompanied a senior from my college who was interviewing with this very famous law firm. And I was waiting outside for her to complete her interview. And suddenly I was summoned by the founding partner and asked to take up the test. So I very reluctantly took the test and ended up getting my first job offer as an associate for a position I never applied for, and also
Mm.
ended up liking the work, as a lawyer. So my getting into the legal profession is, I think, a quirk of fate, or being thrown into various situations, and more importantly, uh, others believing in me more than I did myself. So yeah, a somewhat
I
long-winded
love that.
answer, but
I
but
know that I love that story. And I have to say, I never knew that until this very moment. So that is very interesting. And it just says a couple things to me. One is that you're absolutely brilliant, of course, we know that. But the other thing is that it's amazing what can happen, where your path can go when you leave yourself open to possibilities. Sometimes we think very linearly. And if you had not heeded the advice of those who believed in you. And like you talked about your grandfather being the patriarch. You're not going to argue with him, but it sounds like it was destiny, because you did very well with almost little effort, it seems. And I just think that's amazing. What an amazing story. Be open, folks. You never know where your path will lead if you're just open and follow your spirit. So I thank you for doing that, because you and I were once colleagues, and I happen to know that you are not only a brilliant lawyer, but a wonderful, wonderful colleague. So congratulations on all your success.
thank you, Corey. And I did enjoy us since as colleagues. And I think you're the most awesome human being, apart
Oh,
from being a
thank
brilliant
you.
lawyer yourself. So
Thank you so much. I really appreciate those kind words. Now, it's interesting because here in the US, we have, typically 4 years of undergraduate degree, and then 3 years of law. And then some people go on to what is an LLM, like a master's of law. And then if you want to teach or specialize in something like tax or environmental law, you go on to get those kind of advanced degrees. Is it a similar, what was your path educationally to law? Is it a
right.
similar path? I know that it
Uh,
has a little bit of nuance there.
yes. So the Indian legal system and education follows the British pattern of curriculum and education. So typically in India, you could study a 5-year integrated undergrad program in law after your 12th grade and then qualify for the bar. So at the age of 22, I was already a lawyer. And thereafter, I went on to pursue my LLM in international and constitutional law, which is a 2-year postgrad program. So there is an option where you can do your undergrad studies rather, which is a 3-year program,
Hmm.
and then pursue law for a further period of 3 years. But the 5-year integrated program is now really, really popular. And a lot of young graduates that I come across today prefer to do that switch straight after school, after their 12th grade.
Mm. Mm. That's a fascinating path. That's a fascinating path. An arduous one, nonetheless, but you seem to have enjoyed it. You enjoyed the practice, the study of law before the practice of law.
I did. I think, Lord Denning, his due process of law kind of, the book on due process of law kind of turned me a full patron of legal education. And I think it's a very empowering and interesting curriculum. If you're, of course, passionate and designed to kind of, doing that as a career.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know if you've watched those old law movies that they play, about people going. Paper Chase is the one that I remember, and that the
yeah,
Socratic method, where they never answer the doggone question. They always keep changing the fact patterns. Is that a similar practice
yeah, yeah. It is.
for you?
Reality is far removed from actual, whatever fiction, but but
That's
yeah.
so
So
true. That's so true. I learned the most about law when I was studying for the bar exam. I'm thinking, why didn't they just tell us this in the first place? Why do we have to go through this whole Socratic method? But that's fascinating. So I want to pivot a little bit because I know that you've had the great fortune of working for global 500, Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 corporations that are U.S. based. What is it like? What are some of the advantages and as well as challenges being located in India and then working for these US based corporations?
right. So at the time I started my career as a lawyer, the internet was not as ubiquitous as it was today, and
Ah,
we had those challenges to start with. And then, of course, that whole journey about how India has matured as an economy and become more liberalized and more connected with the global economy is something I have seen through the entire career trajectory as a lawyer.
mm,
Uh, the role of an international lawyer or a lawyer who's based outside of the US is now becoming more and more nuanced and center stage because it is more integrated with business outcomes than it ever was.
yeah,
And that's a fact of all the macro changes that's going on, and also complexity on local regulation, technology, and globalization, and also, not to add, constant scrutiny by regulators post our
yes,
financial crisis of 2008. Basically, international lawyers literally have to know some aspect of the jurisdictional laws in which they operate, but certainly cross-border legal matters, it becomes more important to know what the law says on the other side of the jurisdiction and be able to drive change management, whether it relates to, embracing new policies or driving compliance to new laws with a global risk mindset. Uh,
yes,
and I think business continues to accelerate and put a lot of pressure on the Indian General Counsel today to be able to act and respond quickly and show agility. And if you spoke with any CEO of an MNC, he or she would say that cybersecurity is a top three risk
mm,
for
mm-hmm,
global corporations. And so, when you're an Indian attorney, you need to not just be literate in technology, but become a subject matter expert in understanding information security risk, cyber threats, and come up with solutions in a tech savvy language, which is very hard, because
yeah,
you're not trained
yeah,
to. So
yeah,
the other thing that's a problem today is, of course, everything is becoming tech induced. All our engagement tools, our contract management tools, legal research, all heavily relies on tech tools. So I think a lot of in-house counsel, other than the millennials who seem to love and adapt to it like a fish out of water, have grown to, get tech fatigue, in the
well, they were born in
concept.
it. They were born in this tech environment.
So at the end of the day, I think the what sets me going and the silver lining is to be able to work with professionals from different countries, cultural backgrounds, and take them along in this journey to be able to forge ahead with a common purpose and a common goal.
I love that. I love what you're saying. And it's really imperative in order to be that trusted advisor that every lawyer wants to be. You have to really understand the business and understand the risk and the corporation's risk appetite or the business's risk appetite for certain things. So gone are the days, years ago when you were just a legal talking head. You have to really be a partner to the business. And so you're right. It's not easy, and you've navigated that very, very, very well. What would you consider to be some other key best practices in leading or being a part of a cross geographical team?
Um, I think what matters most, you know, to be able to be a successful leader working remotely with teams is cultural sensitivity and developing cultural intelligence.
Yeah.
Uh, there are stark differences in how, say, an Asian lawyer prefers to manage conflict than perhaps someone in the US. And Asian lawyers also generally show deference to hierarchy and do not really open up and speak up unless they fully trust their leader. So, my leadership style has always been to work in gaining trust of my team, keeping the communication lines open and striving to understand the cultural drivers within my own team and sitting in different parts of the world. Because I firmly believe you cannot run global operations sitting in a desk in one part of the world. So you need to be out there as well to meet up with your team members, albeit in an informal setting where you also get, whenever you get that chance and the budget to travel.
Yeah.
Uh, and lastly, I believe in empowering my team, and they always know I have their back. That's important when you have the remote team.
So
Uh,
important.
right.
So important. And I know that you lead teams in India and the Philippines, and no surprise, they absolutely adore you as well they should, as well they should. I like what you were talking about because you were kind of reminding me of the whole concept of inclusion. Now, it's interesting before COVID, and you talked about budget for travel and all of that. Before the onset of COVID, as we know it, COVID-19, we were moving about in various corporations and, in the workforce period. We were moving about quite frequently and going here and there, and then everything started happening on Zoom. So, how
Yeah.
do you maintain that close relationship and that spirit of unity and inclusion when you're in a virtual environment?
Right. Again, COVID taught us multiple things. It taught us we could work remotely, we could be effective and efficient for a certain period of time, and also kept engaged at a time when the world was crumbling. But there were a lot of things that went missing. It was certainly not a normal situation to begin with.
Hmm.
And, especially when you have teams scattered across the globe, the time difference really matters when you only can connect with them using tech tools, especially Zoom. Uh, so often being lawyers in this part of the world means staying up really late to be able to have an overlap with your US colleagues and then struggling with work-life balance.
Yes.
Uh, so all of us, I think, struggled with it because everything was happening, remotely, and there was no personal connect to begin with. And I had joined my current organization at the time when COVID was, in its first wave.
Hmm.
So, one is to be mindful of time differences and attempt to schedule things at a reasonable hour to encourage better participation from remote teams wherever possible, right? So it's
Yeah.
not like a one-way journey, and you're always having to stay up late to do those calls. Uh,
Yes.
Another obvious one, some of us get it wrong, is to learn to pronounce your colleagues' names correctly with the right pronunciation.
Yes.
Uh, this
Yes.
this will help foster a sense of belonging, uh, and the team feels, definitely included. It's a very simple thing, but a lot of us don't do it well. And the third is, avoid acronyms and slang and maintain
Oh, all the
etiquette
pet
in meetings.
peeves. Yes, I love that. Avoid acronyms. I mean, we get so used to that, and you get new people that come into the organization. It's like we don't know those acronyms. Avoid acronyms. Be mindful of time zones. Make sure that cross-culturally and cross-geographically there is an inclusive spirit in the air. I love all of that you're talking about. It just organically speaks of diversity and inclusion. And I know you have a passion in that regard. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, uh, I am a strong believer. I'm a sponsor of, for a pillar on inclusion for the organization that I work for. And I'm a strong believer that if the organization's leadership is committed in letter and spirit to diversity and inclusion. Leaders walk the talk, deliberately hire people from different backgrounds, celebrate differences, develop transparency and mechanisms to be able to voice concerns of inequities, uh, build strong allyship and mentors, and be open to learn from others and their experience. Not only does
Mm,
it give the organization an edge over others, especially competition, towards becoming the most preferred employer of choice, but leads to higher employee retention. It helps to be a good corporate citizen out there, build the story with own shareholders, and directly contributes to a healthier bottom line. And research has proven this. So, given that there are so many tangible and intangible benefits to embracing diversity and inclusion in all aspects of life, I struggle to understand why some people still resist it.
yes. Yes, I struggle to understand why they resist it as well. And I want to I agree wholeheartedly with what you said. And I also in my career have led global teams. And I think you hit the nail on the head as to why we need DNI. And now we're saying diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. But one of the things I want to educate our audience on is something that may not be intuitive is when we talk about in the United States, we talk about diversity and inclusion, and we talk about ethnic diversity, right? What are we talking, and gender diversity? What is the key focus, would you say, in India? When we're talking about diversity and inclusion, from what perspective are we speaking of that?
Right. So, from an Indian context, I think it would be religious diversity, race. There's plenty of races that invaded us, so we have all kinds of races in India as well. Uh,
Yes.
there is also caste, which still, constitutes a lot of the biases. Uh, Sexual orientation, uh, yeah, and all of those. Yeah.
That's so important. Thank you for sharing that. That is so important. We just need to really, when we are talking about these are issues that impact the world, and we need to be thinking globally and not regionally, or locally and that kind of thing. So thank you for sharing that. Shobhana, do you think that we'll always need DEI advocacy?
Um, well, to provide a balance of voices and representation in an otherwise inequitable world, and to be welcoming of people and ideas which are different from yours. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so you can see the world with a riot of colors rather than, unifocused in one. Uh, I would think DE and I initiatives are definitely necessary today and probably for a long time to come, unfortunately. I believe
Yeah.
this will, like everything else, evolve to meet changing needs of the society, but not entirely go away. Given human nature, our biases, and our, you know, intuitive nature to look at things from our own lens, which is a very hard thing to reverse.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And as you said, unfortunately, I mean, I like to say that we'll need it until we're no longer needing to have a conversation. And, like you said, human nature is not always, about unity, unfortunately. It's sometimes very divisive. But I pray for a world that someday where we will be inclusive, inherently inclusive. But, hope springs eternal. Just put it that
Yeah,
way.
right.
Hope
I
springs
agree.
eternal. So,
Yeah.
Shobhana, we know that you're a brilliant attorney, that you're quite accomplished, that you've had a really interesting journey in getting to the practice of law, even in your education. Who is Shobhana outside of the law?
Oh, well, not a very interesting person. I love spending time with my family and friends. I love to travel, watch K-drama. I love to read a lot. I also support social causes that believe in education and women's empowerment. And I like to mentor young, mostly Indian girls on career choices. So that's what
Yes.
I do. Yeah.
Yes, I'm glad that you mentioned mentorship. I have to get your perspective on what advice you give to young girls or women who are interested in pursuing the practice of law.
I would say it's as good a profession as any if you are inclined towards it, and you have a passion to advocate for yourself and the cause that you believe in, and stand up for rights for others as also your own. The law is the most interesting career choice. It also gives you financial and financial independence to start with. Once you're into the profession, and that itself is empowering because you can give back to the community in so many different ways.
I love that. That is fabulous. And for those of you who may be just tuning in, you are listening to our interview. Of course, I'm Kari, your host, with Shobhana Nikam from Bangalore, India, who is a senior corporate attorney with many, many, many years of expertise in corporate, commercial, transactional, and other law. And she has been dropping some wonderful nuggets with us on the Her Woman Evolves series. And Shobhana, just we've talked a little bit outside of this interview, but just as a reminder, this Her Woman Evolves series really comes from my A Woman Evolves One Woman show, which is a musical production which tells my own journey of coming into full acceptance and merging my dream of practicing law with my passion for music. And eventually, I came to the realization that I didn't have to choose between music and law, which I thought for many years that I did, that both were really a part of who I am, and that I really needed to give myself permission to step out of the box and not accept other people's versions of who they thought I should be and just own who I was. And the remarkable thing for me, gratefully, is that when I was able to do that, I was able to even move even beyond music and law. The journey was no longer about this or that, but it opened me up to so many other things that I've been able to do. And this is, part of my story. And I say it's my story, but really, all of women have a similar journey. And this is why I started the Her Woman Evolve series. Now we have other programs on the AWE radio, but this Her Woman Evolves is it's a baby. It's a passion of mine because I think that although we have such varied experiences around the world, at the end of the day, we are really, really on a similar journey. And I think if we just share that with each other, that would be more apparent to us, and we get to go much further collectively and individually. So I have to ask you in that context, what would you say is your own personal woman evolves?
Well, first of all, congratulations, Corey, for embarking on your journey, and it's
Thank
been
you.
remarkable to say the least. And you are impacting a lot of women in a very, very positive way, and that's a huge difference, that you bring to their lives.
Thank
My
you.
Woman Evolves is about my journey, which began as a clueless young girl to a more confident, mature, and well-rounded professional. I think bringing clarity of thought and purpose, trying to find my North Star, attempting or
Mm.
accepting myself for my strengths and flaws, and finding opportunities to give back to my community, to be able
Ah,
to touch lives beyond your own in a positive way and make that difference, even so small, is my woman evolved journey.
I love that. That's amazing. And already you can see in that going different ways. I mean, certainly we intersect with the practice of law, but just, I mean, you're in India, I'm in the US, and at the root of what you're talking about is self-acceptance and passing it on, making someone else a better leader than you are today. Just so common. And that's why I say it's just a wonderful thing for me to see. And I've interviewed so many different people from so many different places and backgrounds, and I still hear that same kind of thing resonating, us coming and owning our whole selves and bringing all of that to all that we do. Do you think it's important for women to share their stories with each other? Why or why not?
I think it's very important. Stories are compelling, stories can be powerful. Your story and your journey is your own, but stories connect you to a, in a unique way to the universe at large.
Ooh.
Um, because some issues and themes are a constant, no matter which part of the world you come from. And that's the connect which becomes very, very strong once you're able to share your story. And unless we are comfortable sharing our stories, our thoughts, our struggles, and also do something about it, we will
Mm,
constantly be, fighting the same battles against gender stereotypes, inequities, biases, and with no end in sight, right? That's not a world you want to see your kids and grandkids inherit a few decades from now. Um,
mm.
it's because someone shared their story that today we have better laws, better appreciation for other cultures, better society, and hopefully a better planet. Right? It's a iterative and a continuous journey or a process, I think.
Ah, truer words were never spoken on topic. Thank you. I love, love, love that. Shobhana, this has been a wonderful discussion. I don't even want to think of it as an interview, a discussion. I so appreciate you for who you are and for sharing your story, your thoughts and perspectives for our with our AWE radio. I call them the awesomes. AWE, no, no, definitely pun intended there. But and I really thank you for being so open and staying up late to talk with us again. I really appreciate that. But I would be remiss if I did not ask you if you had any final thoughts or final words. Of course, you don't have to, but I certainly want to give you the opportunity to do that for our audience.
Oh, I would say thank you, Corey. Thank you, audience, for being such patient listeners, and Corey for allowing me to share my journey. I wish you all the best in yours and keep evolving and changing the world. You can do it.
Oh, I love that. I feel empowered. I told you guys it's information and inspiration for your transformation, and I feel empowered. Thank you so much, Shobhana. It's been a delight having you here. And thank you, AWE Radio Awesomes. I really appreciate your continued listenership, if I may. Once again, it's your girl, Karee, on AWE Radio, where we are unapologetically empowered and always on. 24/7 with information and inspiration for your transformation. Until next time, be empowered and always beyond anything else, enjoy the journey.